Hi, this is Bob Samuels. I'm founder of TechConnectr. TechConnectr is a marketplace and campaign management platform of best-of-breed account-based marketing solutions. We've partnered with the B2B Marketing Expo to bring you wisdom from leading account-based marketing thought leaders. To that end, I'd like to introduce you to Masha Finkelstein from Google. Masha is responsible for all aspects of digital advertising for Chrome enterprise products. It's a pleasure to speak with you today, Masha.
Hi, Bob. Nice to meet you. I'm doing great today. I'm enjoying the rain, and especially my garden is probably right now, but I'm doing good.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm glad the animals and the plants are all happy today, which is a nice thing. So I understand that you run the marketing campaigns for Google, for Chrome. How do you run them today as far as you have different personas, different groups you want to reach out to? How do you prioritize who you want to go after and what type of messaging you want to send?
Yeah, so this varies based on our overall goals as an organization, and we have OKR system here at Google for goals where we set up priorities every quarter, and all of our team priorities roll up to the larger organizational priorities. So based on what the goals are for us, that determines the campaign strategy and target personas. But generally speaking, we're trying to figure out what the best audiences are for us within SMB and larger enterprise space.
Excellent. So speaking of SMB, so that's going to be your title for your presentation at the B2B Marketing Expo, I guess Wednesday, February 27th at 10:20. So I encourage everybody to attend. Your topic is on using ABM on small businesses. In the old days, ABM used to be for large enterprises, for big cocktail parties, spending a lot of big bucks. Obviously, it's a different philosophy, but ABM's still smart for small businesses.
Yeah, you're right. I think when I joined Google, my role was mostly focused on small and medium-sized businesses, and then later on it expanded to larger enterprises as well. But as I joined, I realized that actually lots of ABM principles could be applied to finding the right small businesses to target, and especially important for prioritizing which SMBs to go after. So, for example, in ABM, as it applies to larger orgs, account selection is the first most important step, right? So you have to work closely between marketing and sales team to figure out which are the right accounts to target. And then when it comes to SMB, it's a lot easier to spread your budget thin because of how many there are, right? So how do you make sure that you're going after the right ones? How do you make sure that you get the most ROI and that people you're talking to are actually going to convert? And that's what I will talk about. I'll share some use cases and case studies that we've seen here work well at Google, and how certain tips and tactics actually apply to SMBs that are similar to how you would target enterprises through account-based marketing.
Makes sense. Thank you. So, what do you use to measure success? What kind of metrics do you use to understand whether you're getting the right people, you're getting the right messaging, are you making the right impact?
We usually have campaign level goals, and campaigns align to where our prospects are in their buying cycles. So, for example, for awareness campaigns, we measure awareness by surveys and brand awareness studies. For consideration campaigns, we have marketing qualified lead goals and pipeline influence. And then for conversion-focused campaigns, we measure revenue and how many of our target accounts or segments have we actually reached through our campaigns.
Makes sense. And again, yeah, so small business does make sense as far as it's trickier because there's so many more businesses to hit and lots more money to spend. But there still needs to be a coordination with sales, but I guess each account is not as majorly focused on as big companies. So how does that work with the coordination with sales on SMB?
Yeah, so in SMB, it becomes not necessarily about accounts, but rather about groups of accounts, right? So you could consider a segment of SMB accounts to be equal to one enterprise account when you're talking about ABM. So in SMBs, it's important to figure out what those groups of accounts are and what the best way to target them together is, and that's kind of like how I go about it. So for SMBs, instead of having a list of target accounts, you have a list of target segments of accounts. And then some of them will be more higher priority than other ones. So you might have tier 1 segments, tier 2 segments, tier 3 segments of accounts. And tier 1 may get direct mail versus tier 2 may only get invited to some field events versus tier 3 just gets maybe a postcard sometimes.
Thank you. So what are some of the best practices that in account-based marketing that you've either seen or done yourself that are pretty impressive that you'd like to share?
So definitely in ABM, it's important to measure everything like everywhere else, I guess. But in ABM, the metrics are slightly different than scaled campaigns, right? It's, of course, account penetration and engagement among your target accounts or among your target account segments for SMBs, which is a little bit more relevant. But measuring and making sure you set everything up for success from the get-go is crucial when you think of any marketing campaigns, but especially ABM. Because the thing with ABM is oftentimes the organization you're in, they want to see the results and the revenue and the pipeline. And when you say, oh, I'm going to try this great innovative technique called ABM, the leaders sometimes are a little bit skeptical about that. So when you set up campaigns, think of how you're going to show that you're actually making an impact. And especially with top of the funnel campaigns, it's a little harder to show the influence and the marketing influence. They're like, well, just tell me what the lead source was. Where should I invest all of my money? But ABM is such a multi-touch, omni-channel methodology that you can't really say, oh, well, let's say Twitter is doing great. Why not invest everything in Twitter? That's not how it works. It's one of the touches, right? So making sure that your attribution is set up correctly and that you have means of reporting on the progress you've made, whether that's pipeline influence or marketing touches or account engagement, I think that's a very important step that people undervalue sometimes. Another thing is having a dedicated sales partner. If you're in marketing, it's essential. If you don't have that, your marketing efforts will kind of go fruitless and you won't actually see that pipeline influence, right? So have an advocate and a partner on the sales team that you can work with and go to and talk about your campaigns and that who will get excited with you about the ABM approach and result. I think that's important. But as you get into prioritizing SMBs, then make sure that you actually research what you're about to test before you start testing. And I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but if you work with research agencies or third parties that can give you the data to show some minimal amount of trends for the spaces you're interested in, that will give you a head start than if you just go blind into testing your new ABM creative approach ideas.
Makes sense. Thank you. So as far as small business goes, is it typically less touches than enterprise? How many touches do you plan on when you do an ABM campaign to the SMB group?
The difference is the buying committee. In the larger organizations, it's usually, I think, 16 people on average for a B2B product. And I don't remember where I'm getting that number from, but I'm sure it's in some article that I can look up later. But for SMBs, because the company size is so much smaller than an enterprise, the buying committee is smaller. So you don't need to get buy-in from 16 people. You need to get buy-in from maybe 2 or 3. And that's where the variable is in the amount of touches. It's not really amount of touches per person that will be different. It's more per account, right? Because you're trying to reach fewer people per account. But then as you think about SMB target accounts as target segments rather, then the amount of touch per segment grows exponentially and very quickly. So if you're measuring on your account engagement or SMB segment engagement, then it will be comparable to enterprise ABM.
That makes sense. Thank you. So, you mentioned Twitter just in passing, but what are some of the channels that you have found nice success when reaching out for SMB?
Well, I can't exactly tell you where these channels are, but I have found great success with LinkedIn because of the targeting and how granular we can get with targeting there. Whether it's here or somewhere I was before, can't say that. But that's one. I have to say that people underestimate the power of customer targeting on AdWords. Yeah, and I'll talk more about that with some examples during my presentation. Twitter sometimes works, sometimes it's less efficient, depending on what your product is and if your target audience actually spends time on Twitter. And then you can get more specific with the types of people you engage through content syndication programs. And some content syndication vendors and publishers are more ABM friendly than others. For example, I can say at some point in my career, I've worked with Ziff Davis, Pure B2B. Those tend to be more friendly towards ABM audiences and targeted campaigns. Yeah, and then there are creative ways to do offline media buys when you do ABM as well. For example, if you know that I guess it's more relevant for enterprise ABM, but if you know that your target account is, let's say, Walmart, you can put a billboard in front of the headquarters. Just one location across the road from the entrance to Walmart headquarters, and that will be your out-of-home ABM campaign there. But that's kind of a stretch example, I guess.
Thank you. So this is really helpful. So is there anything else that I haven't asked you yet about some tips and cool things about ABM? Otherwise, I'll look forward to watching your presentation at the event. That would be great. Hold on.
I think we as marketers tend to get wrapped up sometimes in the newest and greatest tactics and methodologies, but what I keep finding throughout my career is that I always have to remember to bring myself back to the user and the story that we're trying to tell, whether through ABM or other scale campaigns, and staying authentic. I think it's super important. Staying authentic, thinking about the user, being relevant. People like to talk about things that are happening now. And if you do that, whether your message is delivered through an ABM campaign or a scale campaign tactic, chances are your user will notice you and respond.
Great feedback. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you at the event, and look forward to seeing everybody else too. Thank you.